Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Dr. K-12. In this episode, as I promised, I'm going to pick apart a personal statement for an internal medicine residency candidate. Now, this personal statement was submitted by one of my viewers. I'm obviously going to de-identify this and take out any details that may give away where this applicant is coming from, where they're applying to, what their name is. But I'm going to read for you some parts of the personal statement and give some feedback. Now, I'm not going to suggest any changes in grammar or anything like that. This video is mostly about the structure and the content of the personal statement. And if you're interested in learning more, I do have a video, which I'll put the link below, about writing personal statements. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. And the personal statement reads, "Crawling into the Great Pyramids of Egypt, I was blown away by the intricate detail that was necessary for building such a beautiful structure. Walking into the Sistine Chapel in Italy painted one of the most beautiful pictures in my mind. Being immersed into other cultures, foods, and even languages has always been a huge interest of mine. Learning about each culture and an adventure that is never ending." Now, I have to say, thank you for not starting the personal statement with a story about your grandmother or grandfather who was sick, who made you interested in healthcare or medicine. I feel like a lot of people do that in the beginning of their personal statement to sort of set the ground for why they went into medicine. But I really think that this is overused, and probably the people who are reading your personal statements are going to be bored with that sort of a story, and everyone has one. Everyone who ever lived is going to have a loved one that they're going to lose. And so these stories are very important to us personally, and I think that they do provide us with a lot of insights and experience, as we age. However, stories that are about you, again, this is a personal statement, so stories about you are more valuable. So for example, if somebody gives a story about how they beat cancer personally, I think that's important, and that's something to talk about in your personal statement. So I do appreciate that the author didn't give us a story about a family member and focus more so on themselves. So in regards to this intro sentence, or paragraph if you will, I think it does give a lot of insight into your understanding of the world around you. It shows that you're very well traveled and can relate to your patients perhaps. It's not medicine related, and it's actually sort of interesting and refreshing to read because every personal statement that you read that starts with a patient scenario, or again, a family member who's been sick and received a wild diagnosis, I think gets old after a while. So this is something that's different from the other personal statements in the pile. So I think it's good. I think it gives a lot of again, a lot of insight into who you are outside of medicine and your training and education. The second paragraph begins by saying that internal medicine has given me the same joy and enthusiasm the same way learning about different cultures has. I think this is a pretty good transition sentence. For the second paragraph, it takes you from your personal experiences in your life to where you are now in the present day applying for an internal medicine residency. And the second paragraph continues saying that my hunger and desire essentially for learning is never fulfilled, and there's no ceiling of knowledge. Medicine demands you to cast a wide net in order to make differential diagnoses and be able to manage and take care of your patients. And I think these are all very good points, and they are true about medicine in general and especially internal medicine. But again, remember that the personal statement is about you. It's not about what specialty you're applying to. The people who are reading this, hopefully, are people who practice in this field. So they already know how awesome and great their profession, their field is. They don't need you to come in as an outsider telling them, that. So I think there's a little bit too much here about the field of internal medicine, or the specialty rather, and less about you. And as I read this, I've realized so far that I have not gotten to the SPARK statement. And if you're not really sure what that is, go ahead and watch my old video on writing personal statements. Essentially, the SPARK is one sentinel event that made you realize that you want to go into a career in medicine or the specialty that you want to go into. And later on in the personal statement, you're going to give the point that solidifies your interest as to why you finally made the leap or the decision to go into that field based on the experiences that you gained as you were trying to see if this is what's right for you. So far I've not seen the SPARK statement yet, but let's keep on reading. So the third paragraph reads, during the first week of internal medicine rotation, I felt that I was drinking water out of a fire hydrant. The sheer amount of knowledge that my attending was sharing with me was overwhelming. It continues on essentially talking about relishing every opportunity to learn and listen to whatever they had to say, going home and reading about it and trying to really understand it, and not only just the treatment or the management of the disease, but more so the pathophysiology behind the entire process of treating or dealing with such a disease or disorder. And I think these are great points, and I think right off the bat, it does tell me that you're very inquisitive and you want to know more and you want to take it to another step. These are all very good points. I do think that, again, it talks a little bit too much about internal medicine and what we do just generally in healthcare, and a little bit less about you. I think you can probably shorten this paragraph, but let's go ahead and keep reading. As the rotation progressed, I found myself more in love with internal medicine. Every day there was something new to learn, and the attending challenged me, demanding me to support my diagnosis. Okay, let's continue reading. Although this was daunting and sometimes embarrassing, I found value in this sort of critical thinking. Now that's the key word right there, critical thinking, and I think some of the other key words that I found that were important here is understanding pathophysiology, the entire body, which was mentioned, meaning, taking care of the patient requires you to think about the patient as a whole. So you can actually use these key words in a much more succinct way to tell the reader why you're interested in internal medicine. The next paragraph reads, one of my first patients, let's call him Mr. Johnson, had a resounding impact on me wanting to pursue internal medicine. Essentially, a very long paragraph that goes on about Mr. Johnson, who suffered an acute frontal stroke, gave him a lot of deficits, and there was not much that they could do for him, but throughout the writer's rotation, he kept going back to the patient's room every day, sitting down and talking to him for several minutes, 45 minutes more than any other patient, and really got to know him. And over time, the patient opened up to him, to the writer, and he found out that his wife had passed away recently and that he was lonely at home. And then the writer goes on to say that, however, Mr. Johnson taught me something much more valuable than my attending, textbook, or lecture could ever teach me. He taught me that looking beyond the pathology of each patient is a human being who desires to be cared for and loved before being treated for their diseases. And very true, obviously I do agree with you there, but I think this entire paragraph can probably be shortened and cut into maybe 1/3. You can say something along the lines of, explaining the patient scenario. The patient had a stroke with deficits that we were not able to do much for him. However, giving him the support that he needed over time, he opened up, and it made me realize that there is more to a patient than just their disease. Now you can narrow that down, that whole paragraph, into maybe 3 or 4 lines. Again, using these patient scenarios is important to paint a picture about who you are and what your understanding is of the medical system and the healthcare system. They're not really interested in what the actual disease process was unless it's something crazy that they've never heard of. Even in that case, I think it's great. You should write that up as a case report. But in a personal statement, it should be about you. So giving succinct examples that then open up the personal statement to you having the opportunity to talk about yourself. That is the point of the personal statement. It's not so much about the patient's story, but allowing you to use that as a stepping stone to tell the reader something about yourself that's not in your CV or your resume. I did find one statement in that paragraph that said, I found that patients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, every time I step into a patient room, I make it a priority to ensure that they know that I see them more than just a person who has a disease, but I see them as a human being with a heart and a soul. Kind of a cliche statement, it's very true, but I think this makes a good point, and I'm glad that you wrote it in here because it makes the point that every personal statement needs some sort of a profound statement. And you can actually use this to your benefit and sort of tie this into the statement about how these experiences solidified your interest in internal medicine. And this would be the appropriate place to put it, probably halfway or 2/3 into the personal statement. So I would probably keep that and maybe tweak it a little bit, shorten it, and then explicitly even state that this is what solidified your desire to become an internist. All right, now moving on to the last paragraph. My vision is to integrate my passion in internal medicine with my love for different cultures. So this is good. You know, you're tying your last paragraph to your first paragraph, sort of bringing it back around again and using your life experiences to justify why you would be a good internist. I hope to work with programs providing necessary healthcare into the areas that are underserved. Again, I see what you're trying to do there. You're trying to talk about your life experiences and how you plan to perhaps use that in the future to provide care to those who are in need. And it's okay to actually say that in your personal statement blatantly and say, you know, based on my life experiences, in the future, I would like to participate in medical mission trips or outreach missions to help those who are in need. So I think that's a very valid statement to make. And we continue to read, my passion for internal medicine is fueled by the opportunity to continually grow in knowledge in the field that also has the ability to show care for so many patients. So I think what you're trying to say probably here is your inquisitiveness is a trait that's important for being a successful internist, and I think that's great, and I think you should probably tie in some academic thoughts and proposals into this. So let's keep on reading and I'll give you some ideas. There has been no other clerkship that demands you to focus on the intricacy of the patient care at such a sophisticated level. Again, maybe talking a little bit about internal medicine too much rather than yourself and why you would be a good internal medicine resident in their program. Combined with critical thinking, determination, and the necessary importance of teamwork, I know that this specialty is for me. So it's always a good idea to throw out some qualities about yourself at, either in the beginning of your personal statement or at the end of your personal statement, but justify obviously those qualities in your personal statement. So refer back to my video on how to write a good personal statement, where I talk about choosing 4 or 5 traits or qualities about you, and then in your personal statement you give examples of what you have already done or plan to do to achieve those things. So for example, teaching and research and innovation, being a successful clinician, so on and so forth. So I think that's what you're getting at with the statement here. And the writer completes the personal statement by saying that I'm eager to join a large family of internal medicine physicians and thrilled to continue this amazing medical journey. All right, so overall feedback, I think for a first draft, probably this is a good personal statement. There's a lot of things that can be rearranged to make this a much stronger personal statement, but right off the bat, it's actually not bad. I mean, it hits a lot of the good points in terms of giving personal experiences, to tell the reader more about yourself and how sort of a broad experience, life experience that you have, and that can be used to help your patients and be able to relate to your patients. So if you read between the lines, there's a lot of valuable information here, and I think you just need to leverage it. I think there is maybe a tad too much about boasting of the field of internal medicine or going into medicine in general. Obviously, we know what we do and how great it is and the pitfalls of it and so on and so forth. We want to know more about you, not so much about how great of a job we do. And again, the 2 critical points that need to be incorporated is what sparked your interest in internal medicine early on in the personal statement, and then towards the end, what solidified your interest to actually pursue internal medicine. And then overall, one point that I thought was lacking is you need to sort of give it an academic flavor to it. When I read this personal statement, this is a very good clinician, bedside clinician. And that's what we all strive for, but I think academic programs are looking for people who are going to be inquisitive and be academic. And it's also worth mentioning that ACGME actually has research requirements that residents should fulfill. So with that, programs are looking for people who are academically driven and focused. And if you don't have any research experience, maybe you can talk about your leadership skills and how you can use that to sit on the board of a committee or an organization to help advance the field. So some of the themes that I noticed in this personal statement and some of the themes that I'd like you to combine would be personal experiences and insight, which you've already talked about, clinical medicine, which you've touched upon, research and teaching, which I think you should try to somehow add in there and put some sort of a spin on that, and also maybe leadership to help sort of describe how you can contribute to the field. All right, now this is a great beginning. Continue to work on it. What I tell students and residents is that you have to start early and continue to write and rewrite your personal statement until it feels like it's something that's coming from you and addresses all the important points for a successful residency or fellowship application cycle. If you're interested in submitting your personal statement for me to judge and evaluate and give some feedback on, feel free to email it to me or send me a message on Twitter at official.Dr.K12, and I'll be happy to do a video on it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.